everybody, welcome back to Hack and Splash Page. I'm Tiffany, and today we're going down the rabbit hole. Well, sort of. I mean, look, I'm from New Jersey, and as such, I'm very familiar with the films of Kevin Smith. If you are as well, then you know that clever dialogue, everyman characters, and non-apologetic sexual-based discourses are not only expected, but they're thoroughly enjoyed. So really, it's more like I just haven't covered a book like this on the show before. So, without further ado, Sex Criminals Volume 1, One Weird Trick, written by Matt Fraction with art by Chip Zdarsky, is a book that I didn't know all that much about, other than it had to do with sex, criminals, and it had some killer covers. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mario Barron for sending this book over to me. It was one of those titles that the comic book store was sort of weird about selling to people, so it wasn't one that I was really able to easily pick up in floppies. I feel like this book is really sort of two stories intertwined. One's kind of the heart of the book, and the other is more like the cool hook or the game changer. Alone, they're both interesting stories, but when those stories combine, they form Captain Planet. Okay, no they don't. But what they do create is a really compelling tale. The heart of this book focuses on two sort of quirky individuals. Quirky's probably not the best word, but I'm gonna go with it for right now. Susan is a librarian who lost her father suddenly at a very early age in her life, causing her mother to end up losing herself in grief. The library she works at now as an adult is being foreclosed on by the bank, and she's trying desperately to save the books that she loves by purchasing them from the bank. On the other hand, John is a banker who hates his job, but really enjoys literature, and these two end up having their meet cute at a party that Susan and her roommate are throwing in order to help raise money to buy more books from the bank. This is when the two of them learn that they have similar tastes in books, humor, and they both love sex. There's so much more to these two and their relationship, but I really don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't had a chance to read it yet. The fact is, these two are realistically dysfunctional people, and I really do mean that in a complimentary way. They aren't perfect, but they really do seem to be perfect for each other. Honestly, I've barely scratched the surface of these two, but trust me, you're going to want to get to know them through your own reading. Alright, so that was the heart of this story. Now here's the hook. Both John and Susan have the ability to stop time whenever they have an orgasm. And I don't just mean something nice that you say to a partner in the afterglow of it all, something like, time stops when I'm with you. No, I mean literally stops. People stuck in mid-motion, birds stuck in mid-flight, water frozen running from a faucet, that kind of thing. Now, the two of them can actually move around in the stationary world and can even affect it. Now, for Susan, this just eventually wears off, but for John, it lasts the duration of the refractory period that a man experiences after an orgasm. If you don't know what the refractory period is, go look it up. You know what? No, don't go anywhere. Just stay here. I'm just going to tell you what it is. It's the time after an orgasm when a guy can't have an additional orgasm. There's this theory that women don't experience this, though. I kind of feel like I should have some sort of really poorly acted or uncomfortable video to show you guys now. So anyway, when John's ready to go, he ends up dropping out of what Susan calls the quiet. He calls it cum world, so the same thing, two different names. Very different names. Enough of that. So these two find that they have an even stronger connection because they assume that there was no one else out there with this ability. So shortly after they've met and they've gotten to know each other, John's back at work, he's back at the office, and he realizes he hates his job, he hates the bank, he doesn't really like being a part of it, he doesn't like their scruples, this whole thing, and he decides that he and Susan should use their powers to benefit her library. In other words, he feels that they should steal from various bank branches in order to pay off the mortgage. Not too long into this process, they meet a woman who claims to have the same ability they do, as well as she claims that she's a member of the sex police. Look, if we're gonna have sex criminals, we're gonna have sex police. And the sex police are gonna be running around with fleshlights with tasers in them, and they're gonna use them. By the end of this volume, we leave John and Susan on the run. Honestly, there's a lot more of this story for you guys to discover, including a whole musical number that has a really interesting backstory to it that the writer lets you know, and I really enjoyed that. So let's talk about the writing. Fraction's actually an award-winning author, and some of those awards he actually won for this story, and for me that feels entirely appropriate. The story is told in this non-linear fashion, but it's one of the smoothest non-linear stories I've ever read. Having the characters break the fourth wall and talk directly to the reader is a wonderful way to help guide them through the story, and it really does help to create this sort of more intimate connection. The overall story is really engaging, and it presents sex in this natural and conversational way. The relationship between John and Susan is loving and believable. All that crazy sci-fi stuff aside, of course. They're written as equal partners, and I think my favorite part about them is that they don't always agree on everything, which really helps to give that sense of believability. Now on to the art. Zdarsky has worked on a number of books artistically and is actually writing the current run on Howard the Duck, which we actually just talked about on Off the Racks, so yeah. I found this art to be really fun, and yet at the same time it has this sort of like casualness and this beauty and this rawness to it. Essentially it kind of reflects all these different aspects of sex. I really love the colors in this book. They have a really wide range from, you know, the somber moments all the way to the most sensual moments. And I love that the effect of the quiet is euphoric. Also, can we talk about those covers for a second? I love them. I love the fact that each of the covers 1 through 4 has one color on it. It's represented from the colors that are used for print. You know, CMYK, cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. And then the 5th one just combines them all into this like 4-color printing. Oh, it's so cool. Meanwhile, each of the covers is actually just kind of this graphic punch in the face. Yeah, that's right, I punched at you. Graphics. Graphics. That's what I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get graphics. I'm not gonna be able to spell it. I'll have to get it on all my knuckles. So I put it like that. Don't punch it. Not gonna do that. I'm gonna probably cut that out. I think my favorite is probably the 3rd one with the cyan, and you got Susan and John, and they're just kind of melding together to make this one awesome shape. And you know what? I'm getting all worked up over here. Let's just move on. We gotta move on. Just push the frame out of here. All right, one final art thing. I don't know if anyone else noticed this. I kind of have a feeling it was probably the entire comic community, anyone who read this, but still, I'm going to mention it. The fact that John and Susan look a lot like Matt Fraction and his wife and fellow comic writer Kelly Sue DeConnick. I just want to put that out there. There it is. Just, you know, talk amongst yourselves. So, some last thoughts. The book is a really beautiful story about 2 people who just felt isolated in this world and then they found each other. It's incredibly entertaining and it's compelling, and the sci-fi aspect is blended really well with this love story, and it forces you and the characters to question what is right and wrong. Also, it has just the right amount of sex and debauchery to not feel like it's simply done for shock value. I know that Volume 2 is already available and it contains issues I think 6 through 10, and I can't wait to pick it up and see where the story goes. Also, the hardcover version just came out today, March 25th, and it contains issues 1 through 10, just bound up. There you go. So if you haven't checked this out, I'd suggest you pick it up. And if you haven't heard about it, this story is already going to be in a treatment, essentially, for a television show that will involve Matt Fraction and his wife, Kelly Sue DeConnick, in the, creative process. Alright, so here's your question for the week. If you guys had John and Susan's power, what would you guys do with it? Would you, just kind of hang out, relax? Would you get some stuff done? Would you do something that was, a little less, legal? Probably I would try to get some extra design work done. But I gotta be honest, I don't know how that would really work. I don't know if computers work when time is stopped. More than likely, I would probably just go to the local pet store or adoption facility and snuggle all the kittens. So I'm gonna go with that one. I think that one works. So, I can't wait to hear what you guys say. Okay, so that's it for this week's Hack and Splash page. Hey, if you enjoyed this show, give us a like or subscribe to the channel. Also, you can click this annotation and check out everything else that we're doing on ComicPop. Hey, and if you check the description box down below, you'll find a link to our TeePublic store that has some pretty sweet teas in it. And you'll also find a link to the hardcover version of this book in case you want to pick it up. You just click there and there you go. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tiffany, and I'll see you guys next week. So I don't know if it's weird or not, but I didn't mention the fact that John has a glowing dick. Like, when he's going for it, yeah, it's just like white emanating light. But then I was like, do you put pictures in for that? Do you not put pictures in for that? I don't know, I guess I'll just leave that alone, It's not really an important point. It is for him, but, dick jokes on Comic.